Okay, so I thought I'm gonna do another freestyle session. It's gonna be about like 1 hour long. I'm gonna paint and animate in Quill. Let me bring out my palettes first. The panels are undockable, which is really cool. And then I'm gonna turn on this wireframe here, which gives me depth cues. So if I draw, you see like there's like this little wireframe. If I go away with my hand, it disappears. This is really cool. I'm gonna turn on the grid, so I kind of know this is like 1 meter. But let me change the background color first, maybe like a sky blue or something. Also, I can see the chat, so if you have questions, just let me know, and then I can just answer them along the way. What I'm gonna try to do now is like it's mostly freestyle. I'm not sure what I'm going to do, but let me start painting a character. So with this round brush, I'm just gonna do like a little arch like this. Select this. So the X button here is toggles between current tool and selection tool, which is like super powerful. So if you have Quill, make sure to memorize this button. This is like a lifesaver, right? With the joystick button press, you can show or hide the gimbal. And with the index finger of your right hand, you can move this gimbal, or with the middle finger grab, you can move the world or the object itself. So what I'm gonna do is like I'm gonna just put this pivot right here at the center, and then hold the Alt trigger here and rotate. So basically, it duplicates the stroke, and then I just hit redo. Redo is left and right, and left is undo, right is redo, and then I make sure I have like this perfect sphere. So now I have this. This looks good. Now I have this, and I can just move it around, right? And let me color it a little bit. So I'm thinking of like a grass ground. So let me create a new layer. You can either click on this icon here, or you just flick up with your left joystick, and then to create a new layer, flick down as merge layer. So you can quickly flick up and down to create new layer and merge layers, which is also very useful. So let me just create a ground first. So maybe I use like this round flat brush, maybe even this one, and then I'm gonna just create a ground. So I'm gonna it's some grassy ground or something. So I'm gonna just pick random colors, right, and create little grass ground. But I also want so I'm gonna turn on the fade. You know what? No. So what I'm gonna do is I'm turn down the opacity and then add some strokes in between. So because I want the ground to be motion blurred later, so I'm gonna add a few transparent strokes to simulate motion. And let's see. Then I select it. So see how fast I switch between those tools. So I select it, and then I hold the Alt trigger to duplicate, right? So then I can create quickly like a ground like this. So I select, duplicate, and maybe I select a different section, duplicate, right? So I'm gonna start creating the ground just like this. So, and to get some variation, I just reselect other different sections. So this is really cool. Starting to look nice. Let's see. Let me correct this a little bit. Okay. Maybe I make it a little bit wider and a little bit longer. So maybe I just do this. Okay. That looks about right. Yeah. Okay, so I call this layer ground. And then this one is the character. So let me move the character a little bit. So I do that all with a selection tool. I rarely go to the move tool here. Here you can just move the layer, scale it up and down with the joystick while holding it. which is really useful too, but I basically usually do it via selection tool. I select and scale the same way, which is really useful. So I don't think I need the grid anymore, so I'm gonna hide the grid, and then I'm gonna draw the limbs, right? So maybe I use the line tool, and then draw one limb, and then maybe a highlight color here, something like this. So let's see who's in here. No questions yet. But we have 166 people watching. We can do better than that, right? Let's get some more people in here. So what I'm gonna do is like I'm selecting the arm here, and then I'm duplicating it to create another arm. So I feel like this is too big, so I'm gonna scale it down, select and make the arm a little bit thicker. So you see that I construct everything with the strokes I already have instead of repainting everything, and then I can just grab this and move it over for the other arm. But I can also repurpose those strokes for the legs, right? So let me use this for the legs. So let's say this is like a little radish character that I painted before in Photoshop. And I'm gonna redo this, reuse him, and then it's like a running frame here. So last time I showed a lot of the anim brush. This time I'm gonna show a little bit of the frame by frame animation, how this works. This looks good. Let me start coloring it in a little bit. So I want the light. So let me create a new layer. Show you guys. I want the light to come from here, right? Beep, beep. So this is the lighting. Maybe, maybe I put it higher like this. And this is like what I have in my head right now when I paint. So usually I don't draw like this arrow, but for you guys, I think it helps to know what's going on in my head. So this would be the brightest part, right? Some warm highlight. And then you will have a lot of bounce light from the ground, which is like kind of like green. So I'm gonna add some greens from the green bounce from the bottom. Right, this looks really cool. And then the sky is blue, so we will have some sky fill as well in the shadow side. So it's gonna be a little bit blue, maybe a little bit brighter. And then the transition, I make it a little bit smoother here. That looks really cool. Then the legs would be in shadow here. So the leg would be like this, and this leg will be a little bit brighter. And a little bit green at the bottom. So I can also select individual strokes like this, and then just color those in, right? So I can select the bottom strokes and color those in. Right, so this arm would go here because he's running, and this one would go like this, right? So I always use the selection tool to pose things. Now I'm gonna give him some eyes. Maybe something like this. Add a little highlight. People are mentioning my Transformers animation. Thank you. That one was fun. Like VR really enables you to do stuff that you can't do with traditional approaches really fast in like no time, which is really cool. I think this is the power of 6 degrees of freedom, that I can move and place things around in space. And then let's draw a mouth. So I'm gonna need the wireframe again just to see where the surface is, and then I'm gonna draw a mouth. Looks cute. And let's give him some little cheek. Maybe something like this. I think it's too bright because it's in shadow, so let me select it and make it a little bit darker. It's really cool. And then he needs, of course, leaves, right? So let me draw some leaves. Might have to keep an eye on the time. So okay, we're like 11 minutes in. So let me draw the leaves. And then I'm gonna just, for the highlight side, I'm just gonna select it and duplicate it, right? And then that's a little trick I like using, and then I just color in the other side. So now we have this leaf. Put it here. And duplicate it with the Alt tool. And maybe add some other color variations in there so it doesn't look exactly the same. Maybe I select this leaf as well. A little bit of color variation and maybe even a little bit of translucency. So in this case, I might use the color dodge. Let's try if this works. I want some green in it to simulate like translucency. So this looks pretty good. Let me make the leaves a little bit smaller. And he needs hands, right? So for the hands, maybe I just use like a little blob or something. Just like a little blob here. This is good enough. And then duplicate it, bring it to the other side. I'm not gonna be too detailed about that because I don't have much time to animate this guy. So we have this. Let me remove this. Okay. The armor is a little bit too big, so I'm gonna scale it down a little. So you see, like, I always work on one layer here right now, and then basically I'm using the selection tool to my advantage to modify the strokes. So I'm gonna duplicate this leg as well, this foot. Okay, this looks cool. Let me position it like this. Maybe the legs are too big. Maybe I make it a little bit smaller. And let's see if the pose looks good. So this looks cool. And then I'm gonna bring him down, the whole radish, bring him down a little. Just like this. This is really cool. Okay, so let's start animating him. Or maybe let's make more radishes. So let me duplicate just this. Those are baby radishes. So let me flick up. So now I basically, when you select something and you flick up, you copy the selection into a new layer, which is really cool. So this is like babies. This is like a baby. And then so I scale it down, right? And maybe they have like smaller leaves. Maybe they have only one leaf. How about that? And then I use the nudge tool to make him a little bit rounder at the bottom. And a little bit wider, just like this. And maybe they don't have legs yet, so they're gonna bounce after the daddy or mommy. So I'm gonna have this. Okay, let me first animate this guy. I think this is like easier. So what I'm gonna do now, let me save a little quick. There's like no questions yet, I guess. Let me read. Yeah, no questions yet. All right. Anyway, so I go to the transform tool here. Select Animate Duplicate Transform Selection. What it does is when I now duplicate this guy, I showed it in my last live stream, it will create a new frame, right? So I have the onion scanning on, like I see previous 3 frames. So what I'm gonna do is like I'm gonna push him to the ground, boom, first frame, and then he's gonna jump. So maybe like this, jump. And then jump up like this. Let me make sure that he jumps up straight. And then he comes to a halt at the top. And I'm just animating the frames, the spacings. And then let's see what it looks like. So this is cool. So he's already moving, right? So now this frame, the squash frame, I'm gonna use now the nudge tool and just push him. Oops. Yeah, so the squash frame, I'm gonna push him down. So, oops, I have the inflate tool. I wanted the nudge tool. So I'm gonna push him down, something like this. And then there he is, squashing down. And then he will stretch. So I'm gonna pull him forward a little. And then adding the squash and stretch. So he's gonna stretch. So squash, maybe I can squash him more. Squash, stretch, and maybe he gets stretched more even. And here, maybe even more. And then stretch him here. He comes to the top, and then he stretches again. Like this. And let's see. That's pretty cool. Okay, but I want the leaf to react too. So so he comes down, the leaf goes up, and then down. You know what? I can just select it and rotate, and nudge. Oops, nudge. This will be like this. Nudge. And then here, okay, I have to see it goes up. I think here we can still rotate it like this, and then slowly it snaps back. So let me animate the rotation here, and then it snaps back, and maybe it goes forward a little bit more vertical. Let's see what that looks like. Yeah, this looks really cool. Okay. Oh, I moved the leaf a little bit over, so I'm gonna fix this. This is why it's important to look at it from all angles at all times, right? So do this, fix it. Oh, I messed it up. Okay. Okay, this looks cool. So those are the little ones, you know. I'm following him, and maybe I will add some forward trajectory to them. So maybe he rotates forward a little bit to jump forward. Just rotating him a little. Yeah, that's cool. Okay, now I have him jumping around, and now I will animate the dad, right? The dad character. So I call this one Radish actually. And then I'm gonna duplicate the frame. So how I do it is I hold the Alt trigger here, the index finger trigger, and click the right joystick down as a button. And then if I bring up the animation panel, you will see, boom, it's now a duplicate, right? So let me set the onion skin onto 1, and then I can now basically create the passing position. So the leg comes down, and then this leg comes forward, just like this. And then with the left and right joystick, I can basically go frame forward and frame backwards. So it's going to be running. And then the arms come forward. This arm comes back down a little. Okay, and then I'm gonna duplicate this frame again and then create the other side, right? So his leg is like this, and his neck goes forward just like this. And I could definitely also mirror the other side, but I want to do it manually right now just for you guys to understand it easily. And so 1, 2, 3, 4. So I need another frame where now this leg comes down. Just like this. And then this leg comes forward. Like this. And I'm going to correct the poses along the way. And this arm comes down a little. And this arm comes forward a little. Maybe like this. So it feels like stop motion animation, which is really cool. So let's see. Passing, boom. Contact, jump, contact. Okay. So that looks good, but let him bounce around a little. So this one I'm gonna move up a little. So just slightly up, down, up. So this one I select the whole frame and move him up a little. Okay, now I'm gonna put in the in-between. So in frame 1, I'm gonna now basically duplicate the frame, move him down a little. So I select the whole radish, move him down a little, and the leg comes down. So maybe this is the contact position. So at any time I can just oops. You know what? I have to turn off this. At any time I can just lengthen the legs as I need to by duplicating the strokes. Right? So he's planting his foot. And it's not gonna be like the best run cycle, but let's see. So this is the, let me exaggerate this a little like this. And then this arm comes down, just like that. And this arm comes down like this. So 1, 2, 3. So this, maybe I'm gonna move this over a little. Something like this. And let me see if the posing is good. So I want this leg to be a little bit angled, more like this. And maybe this leg is more angled like this. Okay. Now that looks odd. So like this. This leg needs to go in. Okay, next, between 3 and 4, I duplicate, and then I move the whole radish. So he comes, so he goes up. So 4, frame 4, I'm gonna just move up a little, and then also move his legs. So he's gonna push off the ground. So I'm gonna lengthen his leg here a little by duplicating the strokes, simply duplicating the strokes. And here, I think, yeah, he's coming forward. I almost did the opposite. Something like this. Let me set this to 1 again. So we have 1, 2, 3, push off. So in the push off, 1, 2, 3, push off. So push off, the arm comes forward, and the other arm goes backwards. Right? So you can like look at the onion skinning and make sure that it's evenly spaced. So if I hit play, he's already running, right? Then now let me put the leftover frames. So we have the landing, we have the jump, and then we need between 5 and 6 again, and in between, just like this one. So between 5 and 6, I duplicate the frame, and then put the contact position. But before that, I'm gonna move this whole guy down a little. He will straighten his leg, bring it down, just like this. And then let me just lengthen his leg a little. It's the beauty about it, you know, you can like modify each frame as to your needs. Okay, and then this leg comes forward. And then this arm goes back. Just like this. This arm goes forward. And then now he's already running pretty fast. So let me see, I'm 28 minutes in right now. I have already 2 characters animated, so maybe I will leave it at this because of time. I mean, I could add more. I could certainly add more frames, but I think you get the concept. So let me just slow it down. I'm gonna make this like 12 frames per second. Maybe I go a little bit faster, 18 frames per second. Yeah, this is cool. So now I'm gonna add some motion blur. So for motion blur, I use just a flat brush, a little bit of transparent strokes, and then I'm gonna see. So let me turn the onion skinning off. So he's reaching forward, and here I can add a little bit of motion blur. Oh, there's a frame missing actually. Let me add a frame here. So add a frame here, and then I need an in between for this. So the whole radish will go up. So I don't know if the chat is updating because I don't see anyone saying anything. So hopefully this is all working. If you're asking questions and I haven't replied, it's because I don't see any updates. If you want to write something, try to write something and I'll see if it's updating. Because it looks like it's not. So in the beginning I saw a lot of people reacting and now I don't see it. Yeah, I don't think, I only see reactions, like the thumbs up and stuff, but I don't see the chat. So let me see what's going on here. Just making sure. Okay, so it looks like it wasn't scrolling. I hope it scrolls now, but let me see. It usually auto scrolls, but it wasn't scrolling. So let me make sure that the live stream is scrolling. Okay, now it's auto scrolling. Yeah, I totally missed like a lot of messages. So somebody is asking how would I do the terrain moving? That comes later, but let me just fix this animation up a little quick. So this looks good. Yeah, okay. Now I fixed it. Now I'm gonna add the motion blur as I said. So we have this motion blur just like this on this leg. Boom. So I just follow the arc. And then here, follow that arc. This is cool. And then I'm do the same on the other side. So something like this. So Nima is asking, how long did it take you to master this kind of painting? Well, the cool thing about creating in VR is that the learning curve is very, like to use the tool, the learning curve is pretty short, right? So you can get a good hang of it in like a few hours or a few days. It's not like when you're learning like tools like Maya where you need like a year to get fluent at it. The part that took me long is the understanding of like how animations work and how I paint light, right? So that took me more than 15 years to get to this point. But Quill is just a tool. So in this case, you know, learning the tool is like really fast actually. So let's see how this works. This looks cool. And then I do the same for the arms. So here, just like a little bit of motion blur. Just like this. So someone is asking, will you have to add the motion blur in every frame? Yeah, because it is frame by frame animation. And you want it to look a certain way, right, in each frame. So you don't want it to be automated or something. So you don't want it to carry over because basically what you want is that it looks appropriate for each frame. And you can see like it doesn't take long. It just takes less than a minute to add those things. People tend to like wanting to automate a lot of things because they're used to like traditional approaches, like with traditional 3D tools. But in fact, you know, a lot of times, like in VR, when you do it like manually, you're actually much faster than you think, right? So now I have the character running, and then I'm gonna hit play, and then I'm gonna let him run slower. Maybe at 7 frames per second. And then I'm gonna try to animate, let me save a little quick. I'm gonna try to animate his leaves. So he's running like this, so I'm gonna use the nudge tool. Let me see. Just like in the rhythm. So this is cool. And then I put him back to 18 frames per second. And maybe I want to move his leaves a little bit more angled to emphasize his speed. So what I'm gonna do is like I'm just holding the selection tool in there and then just move the animation to something like this. Maybe it's a little bit offset now, so let me fix that a little quick. Something like this. It's good. So now he's running, and now to create the illusion of him moving, the ground looks a little bit even, so I'm gonna colorize it a little bit. I'm gonna go to normal mode in the ground and just add a little bit of variation in there. Just a little bit. So let me see if it's scrolling again. It might have stopped scrolling again. Yeah, it stopped scrolling, which is weird. So Ben is saying you could try and do it with the anim brush. Well, I showed the Anim Brush workflow last week or 2 weeks ago, and this time I just wanted to focus on something else. There's multiple workflows. What I'm showing here is not the only workflow, right? So there's multiple ways to get to things. But if you want to control frame by frame, that is definitely something that you want to do frame by frame, right? So let me extend this ground a little bit more. So I'm gonna duplicate it, and then what I like to do when I do these kind of cycle animations, let me fix this transition here a little bit, is I like to put some markers. So I'm gonna create a new layer, and with a line tool, I'm gonna create some markers here, right? Let me put a marker here and duplicate the marker to here, which means, let me move this whole ground a little bit over here. And then that might be actually enough. So what I'm gonna do now is basically I'm going to select the ground. I go to the transform tool, go to Animate, Duplicate, Transform Selection, and then I'm just gonna duplicate the ground by holding the Alt key and grabbing it and moving it a little. And now you see it created a new frame, and then I do it like 1, 2, 3 more times. And then I hit play. Right? Now the ground is moving. And then what I'm gonna do is in each frame, let's see what it looks like. I'm gonna just delete, holding the marker as a reference point. I'm just gonna delete these overshooting grass bits. This will select, and the A button is delete. And then hit play. Now it looks like he's running, right? Now let me remove the marker here, which is really cool. And now, over time, while this is playing back, maybe I play it back a little bit slower, maybe at 20 frames per second or something. This is cool. Then I use the colorizer tool. Maybe I go to multiply or something. Oh, you know what? I go to normal mode and then add a shadow. So I'm gonna paint a shadow over time. See? Which is really cool. And then he's running like crazy. And then let me try to create maybe, what time is it? Okay, I'm 39 minutes in, and see how in 39 minutes I did like this kind of animation already. But I want a few more baby radishes, right? Because like he doesn't have just one son or daughter, you know, he should have more. So what I'm gonna do is just, I'm just duplicating it by clicking this arrow button here, and then I just duplicate it, and I duplicate it more, right? And change the sizes by just holding it and using the joystick. And then I'm gonna duplicate it again, maybe one more time. Maybe there's like a small one, tiny one, like following really fast. So let me rearrange it a little bit. So this guy is like jumping maybe here. And then let me stop this animation and make sure that they are hitting the ground properly. Just like this. Maybe this guy is also a little bit bigger. And then the last one is maybe here. Let's see. Okay, so the baby, because she's like so small, right? I have to scroll again. Sorry, guys. So for the baby, because he's like tiny, he has to like be much faster, right? So I'm just gonna increase the frame rate for this guy to maybe like 40 frames per second. Let's see what that looks like. So he's like trying to catch up, right? And then for the other guys, I'm gonna just adjust the frame rate. So let's see, the biggest guy, maybe the biggest guy is the one behind him. So if I make him bigger, make sure that he's on the ground. So maybe he moves like at let's say 18 frames per second, and then there's the baby, it's fast, and then this guy is moving at, let's say, 22. No, he's actually smaller, so I'm gonna, who is he? This guy. So maybe he's moving at 26 and this guy is moving at 22 frames per second. So now you get like nice little variations, offsets, right? Which is really cool. Let me change the background color a little bit to a brighter sky. And maybe there's some bushes or something. Oh, I need the shadows, actually. So I go to the ground animation, and then I just paint the shadow by colorizing the ground. So let me do this really quick. Hold it in a little. That guy's going crazy. Yeah. All right. So obviously I could make the shadow go away a little when it goes high and stuff like that. I don't want to deal with it right now, but this gives you an idea. Okay, let me do bushes. So I make a new layer, and let me create some bushes. Something like this. Mixing some colors in between. Let me try if this is working, and then I'm gonna simulate some motion blur. So same thing, I'm gonna use like a flat brush and then simulate some motion blur. Mix it in somehow, and then I'm gonna select it all and duplicate it. Oops, duplicate it over. Come on, why isn't it working? Hold on. Oh, this is why. Okay, now it's working. Yeah, and then duplicate it a few times. Maybe add a little bit of variation. Move this. And then I'm going to move this over here. So I'm going to select it all, move it over here. And then I'm going to use, again, the functionality, animate, duplicate, transform, select it all, and then move it a little bit. Maybe like 4 times, 5 times, let's see. And then I'm going to play it back. So obviously I have to now delete the strokes. So I'm gonna now use actually the opacity one and then erase it. It's better to actually erase the strokes, but because I use bigger strokes, I have to use the eraser here. So it's better to delete the strokes, I mean not erase. Just for size reasons, you know, what you don't see, you don't have to like draw, right? So it's always better than to delete rather than using transparencies and stuff like that. But if I now play it back, it looks like there's like, it's like running like crazy, right? And then I can start creating what time is it? 46 minutes in. Let me rename this to bushes. And then maybe I can do some like a sky background, sky gradient. So let me scroll again if people are asking questions. James Hunt is asking, is there an easy way offsetting animation without changing frame rate? Yeah, the way to do it is if you look, for example, at this radish character. Let me see if I can do it quickly. And then I duplicate the radish, right? So I have another radish here, and I want him to offset. What you can do, currently there's no like really easy way, but what you can do is like you create a new frame, new empty frame, right? And then you copy the first frame to the 9th frame, right? So you press this, and then you just delete the first frame, right? And then you create an empty keyframe, you copy then again frame 1 to frame 9 and delete this. And when you hit play, now it's like offset, right? And if you keep doing that, it gets like more and more offset, right? New frame, oops. So new frame, copy from frame 1, delete frame 1. And then you see that it starts offsetting, right? So this is like one way you can do it. There's actually no quicker way currently, or I don't know of, but that is a way to do it. Now I'm gonna just do the sky. So what I'm going to do is like I'm choosing a blue or something, and then I'm gonna draw a half dome. So what I'm gonna do is just draw like a little half circle, and then move the pivot over here, and then just keep duplicate transforming it. And then I'm gonna use the colorizer tool to add, oops, I'm on opacity, to add some gradient to it. Sky gradient. And then I select this whole thing and put it around him. And then make the transition smoother. Something like this, right? That looks good. And now we have this running guy. And then people are asking how I record my stuff, and capturing is as easy as basically going to your open menu, you go to capture, you choose AVI, maybe like 720p, 30 frames per second, and then you see like this little those bars at the top and the bottom, where you become the camera, and with the trigger you can start recording. And it captures the left eye currently, right? So if you make sure you close your right eye, if you want to have a perfect framing, and then I just hit record, and I just rotate around it, and then once you're done, you hit stop capture, and that saves it into your Windows picture folder. So yeah, this is it. I mean, it was barely 50 minutes, and you see what amount you can get done in 50 minutes. It's not even an hour, right? And you have lighting here, you have motion here, you have even motion blur. It's really cool what VR allows you to do. And with Quill, you can create like an animation like this in no time. So this is like super fun, and definitely a new art form. And let me move over so you can actually see me. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed the live stream. I just wanted to show you other methods of like approaching your animation, and there's countless ways to do it, and this is just one way. And if you happen to be in Paris next week, I'm gonna be at the IAMAG masterclasses. I'm gonna do a talk over there. So if you're in France and in Paris around that time, it starts, I believe, on the 17th, Friday, Saturday, Sunday next week. So don't miss it if you're there. So that's for today, and see you next time. Bye, guys.